more sensitive, so like film is sensitive usually from like 300 nanometers to 600 nanometers. Visible light is like 300 to 600 or so. And the film that I use is sensitive from 200 nanometers all the way to 1,000 nanometers. And then to cross process, instead of, no, it's not. It's codec VIR. So it's usually used for detecting movements in creative fields, stuff like that. And so I do portraits with it, and then cross process. I'll show you a different way of looking at it. In terms of driving filters and something like that, that's what it looks like without photoshopping.
All right, guys, we're going to get started in just 1 minute. Yeah, could you?
And just a reminder to everybody, we do pretty much have all the DVDs available, so if anybody's interested in taking any home with them, just come see us out there in the hallway. Thanks. You'd be surprised.
Hey, was it any good? Did I rush it? It felt rushed. Okay. All right, everybody, I think we're about to get ready to get started. If you could, sit, because I can't yet. Anyway, we are Secure Science Corporation. The talk today is entitled Tracksploits. We will be discussing hackerish techniques used to sort of track and unmask fishers and identity thieves. I'm sure that there are probably a couple fishers in the audience. Did Matt make it in here yet? No, we're still waiting on our fisher. Okay. All right, well then I'm going to go ahead and have the boss man come up first. Lance, why don't you do your thing?
Good morning.
Dude, it's like 6.
Depends on the country. How was everybody? Yeah? Everybody partied out yesterday or what? All right, so just a background on us as a company / people. We spend our days tracking phishing groups and botnets and malware and anything that pretty much causes a disturbance on the internet. And so we have to give you an obligatory CYA disclaimer. I'm going to read it because I'm supposed to. Basically, rumored to be a dramatization of events. So these exploits that we are doing may or may not be, quote, ever used. Some of these tracksploits may have never happened. We're supposed to say this. This research is gray matter and may not be legal in all states. Please consult your local law enforcement office, lawyer, wise sage, prosecutor, etc. before attempting any of this at home. This presentation is for informative purposes and is designed to stretch the mind when devising counterintelligence methods involved in forensics. Again, we strongly suggest that participating parties seek legal advice before engaging in such activities. And you can read the bottom for yourself. So, what's a tracksploit? So it's kind of our new little term. A lot of people think it's tracking exploits. That you could be that way, but in our case, it's different. As you can see the pronunciation there. Basically, it's utilizing subversive techniques to identify, track, detect, and deter online threats. In this case, we're going to kind of do a lot of examples with online phishing attacks and botnet and malware attacks that are usually used in data theft or in espionage. The tracksploit in our book must be legal, aka you can't literally, we're not sitting there basically, retaliating against hackers or anything like that. It's usually in conjunction with outside-the-box thinking. A lot of times people are very industry standard, and a lot of this actually is, a gray matter in that sense. Here we go. So basically, we've been tracking 53 phishing groups for a good while now, and most phishers / hackers all have patterns, and patterns in most cases, predictability, of course, heuristics and such. A lot of people who are familiar with that will understand this. So these phishing and hacking techniques all have also weaknesses, just like systems online have weaknesses, so do the phishers and the hackers with these patterns. So one of the things that we do is you're not going to underestimate the out-of-the-box thinking when we approach, how to actually, find a fisher or, break some crypto or this or that. So what we're going to do is, quote, track-exploit their weaknesses. A lot of this is done using defense. And I'm going to just review the phishing techniques that are popular today. There's imitating, which is basically a standard mirror of a fish site, looks like of a bank. It usually either refers the images or it actually mirrors directly all the images. A forward is actually what you see with a lot of eBay, PayPal, and Amazon fishes, where basically the actual logins inside the actual email, and it's a submit post within that, and then usually the victim never sees the actual the blind drop or the itself, and it usually forwards them back to the real bank. Pop-up, which we sometimes see, it was very popular in the beginning, and it came back because of certain exploits they found to get around pop-ups. That's kind of a new arms race itself. So the pop-up is basically what you'll have is a real, like, Citibank or Wells Fargo in the back, and then a hostile pop-up in the front, and it adds for a lot of good validity because of the fact that you have the real bank in the back, the domain there, and it's just a pop-up asking for your information. And then we see key logging and form grabbing. With different Trojans we see out there, PWS Banker and MetaFisher and Hackstore and such like that, different ones out there. So I'm not really going to go through this slide. Raise your hand if you know what phishing is by now.
Raise your hand if you don't know what phishing is.
Yeah.
Talk to me afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. So we all get an idea.
Give me your bank account number.
It's basically pretext attacks, and it goes after innocent people that have no clue and can't raise their hand in this conference. So we're going to kind of go through some recent logs of the last week on average are about 100 megabytes per day per phishing group. So if you get infected with a piece of malware and it's one strain that gets sent out and it's one distribution, we're finding that when we find the actual data logs, the logs that are stealing are about 100 megabytes a day. And it ranges, we have some that go 250, 200, some 50, but the average actual number is about 100 megabytes. This is basically gaining an average of 16,000 logins per day stolen from one phishing group, and that's usually, on average, there's about 5,000 credit cards in there. This varies, but we pretty much put a norm on this. Since January 2006, we have recovered 2 million plus credit cards just from Trojans alone. Basically, if you look according to the FBI statutory law in California, in which we're a California company, it's an average of $500 per card in potential loss. Now, the banks usually look that up more at $1,200 to $1,500. We see that the average hit on a bank is about $1,200 to $1,500. Action starts hitting and saying, hey, there's some malicious activity going on. So if you just take the conservative $500 per card, that's a $1 billion problem. Just for this in the last 6 months, 6 to 8 months. And that's just what we're seeing. We don't get all of this information, but our surveillance is actually just giving less, and that's a pretty alarming number. Here's an actual slide here that is basically, we watch one phishing group over a 4-month period. We're still watching them, but we're just posting you guys a trend here. Basically, what we did was we looked at the top credit card bins and said, okay, what banks are being the high targets of the stuff? And a lot of it is still based on their popularity as a bank, too. Bank of America bought MBNA, which makes them one of the top-tier credit card companies out there for distribution and circulation. And as you see, like the first month, we see Bank of America being the top, Citibank and Chase. And then we kind of go and you see the second month, there's a good-sized growth there. And the third month, there's almost more than a 50% growth, and it's starting to just go higher. As problem, the credit card theft is obviously a real serious problem, and it's not exactly getting better, even with all that fraud software out there and everything. So how the heck do we know about all this data? A lot of people are like, well, when we try to give it to certain financial institutions, we get multiple mixed approaches. Some of them think we're fishers ourselves. Some of them freak out. They don't want to know about this. And some of the people are very forthcoming and are very glad that they see this kind of information. So one case study is what's called Hackstore. The real name of it by the author is actually A311 Death by Corpse. It's a rootkit, basically, and a Trojan that basically utilizes farming and form grabbing to steal user data from client machines. Form grabbing is similar to what people call key logging, and it's actually the #1 method for malware that does data theft. And instead of actually logging the keystrokes, if you hit submit on your web browser, it's actually taking your headers and submitting them to a blind drop. So it's actually getting, when you log into a site, it actually gets that before SSL. This was written in assembly, and it's very popular with Russian fishers. We're seeing probably at least 10 to 20 distributions a week nowadays. So it's quite popular, but it's very clandestine in most cases, and we see an average of it getting discovered within 1 to 2 weeks. Here's what the phishers see when they're using this, Trojan. So they have kind of like, like NetBus and all the other ones. You basically have, control of their computer. You can freeze their computer. You can trash it. You can kill it. And then they can also, when you're actually setting up malware itself, they give you a Trojan creation kit, which is basically, they actually sell it online. Now, Hackstore is sold online for between $250 and $2,500. And basically, you get certain licenses with this as a Trojan creation kit. So they give the phishers a thing that basically lets them save an executable with their settings in it, and the permutation is different every time. And they license it like normal software, so they may get 5 different permutations with their license. So it's kind of neat. It's a little business. So basically, what happens is So what happens basically, in this case, this is obviously an open directory. Now, these are getting less and less, but we still have methods using inference. So what will happen, this is actually a nuclear grabber log, which is what's called Trojan.golden for most people who are in the AV industry. That's what they've pretty much titled it. And don't ask me why they do that, but anyways, I prefer just going to the name of what the virus author calls it. But basically what happens here is we can actually grab these log files because we analyze the malware and find the blind drops, and then we go after them. In a lot of cases, these directories are closed, but because we have worked with ISPs in the past, we know that we have the source code to their blind drops. We know what their files are going to look like. And a lot of times they don't chmod them properly, so we basically can just write a Perl script that actually gets these files every hour, every 5 hours, whatever we want to do. Tricks for auto-analysis in this case. So we can actually come up with a Hackstore blind drop within 30 seconds of getting a copy of it. We basically use VMware, of course, and stuff, but you don't even need to get tricky with, once you understand the code base of Hackstore, how it works. It's actually a COM object basically hooking into Win32 API, not as a BHO, but when you deal with BHOs or any kind of IE hook-in that basically is a malware that's actually doing it, like MetaFisher is also a BHO version, a browser helper object. And what happens is it actually uses IE to send this using the HTTP send request A function. And so what will happen is you can just grab a free copy of IE HTTP headers, you can infect yourself with it, and basically what happens is the minute it starts in it, you'll see some headers are coming out of IE, basically connecting to the blind drop. This makes it easier so we don't have to pull up Ethereal or any other crazy stuff. We can just pretty much grab it and go. And then we can locate the blind drop, and we can monitor it and mitigate it by returning it back to financial institutions and law enforcement. The result to this is basically dead on arrival. And the reason why is that basically what happens is the time span between the time that they steal data and the time they use data is between 2 to 4 weeks. It is starting to increase because they're building search engines inside their malware, or their blind drops that allow them to search in real time, and it correlates it in a SQL database so that they can look up Wells Fargo or Bank of America as they're stealing this data. But in most cases, we've had it where we return it to a financial institution and we'll give them all their old data. They'll correlate it and say, yes, these have had fraudulent activity, but all the new real-time data that we continue to give them, basically they get to it before the phishers actually start using it, which is a little bit more preemptive than most situations. So we basically do full real-time risk mitigation in this action for track exploiting. So preemptive action, we kind of look at the code itself. One of the things that we wanted to look at with Hackstore is almost like 99% of Hackstore is packed with FSG, which is fast, simple, good. It's a common packer for malware. One of the things that we've kind of done is a study on how many non-malicious executables are packed with FSG, and so far we've got none, but I'm going to still say 99% are, and that 1% will be left for if we ever find any. But at this time,